Hello, my name is Wendy Pike and I'm one of the assistant principals here at Wilkins Public School. I'd like to begin by acknowledging country. We, the staff and students of Wilkins Public School, would like to acknowledge the First Nations people on this land, the Wongal, Kamagal and Beniagal clans of the Eora Nation. We thank them for their knowledge, courage and care of the land and waterways. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander persons here today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us thus far on this journey, this second video, as we put our plans for the future in place. Today we are going to be looking inward, outward and forward. We welcome your feedback at the end of this presentation. Now let me give you some background before I start and tell you about the things that have really been driving change in our education system. And the first is the Premier's priorities. So the current New South Wales Government have put a priority for 2023 to increase the proportion of public school students in the top 2 NAPLAN bands for literacy and numeracy by 15%. This goal put in place by the Premier is definitely driving change in our schools. We also look towards our own strategic plan, the 2018 to 2022 plan put in place, where our vision was to be one of Australia's best education systems and one of the finest in the world. We note with Miss Lee, my colleague's presentation last week, that at this stage, we aren't tracking as great as we would want to be. But we are driven by our purpose, which is to prepare young people for rewarding lives, to be engaged citizens in a complex and dynamic society. And we note the goal is that every student, every teacher, every leader, and every school improves every year. Now we know that to achieve such big dreams, that all young people have to have a strong foundation in literacy and numeracy. Must be deep content knowledge and confidence in their ability to learn, adapt, and be responsible citizens. This drives us to change and look inward to make sure that we are putting plans in place to make sure every child is known, valued, and cared for, and all of their educational needs are met. We also have another driving force at the moment when the Latham report came out early this year, which put a spotlight on how the New South Wales Department of Education was going and recommended a number of clawing back of some subjects and really focusing on what works best in our department. Now, when we look inward, we have to look at the things that have been driving change over the last few years. We look at our previous plan and we look at our school excellence framework and how we've been tracking. This will give us information for us to put the plans in place for our future. We make sure we look at our goals, what they were in the past, whether we have achieved them, and where we're going. We also have been looking at data that has been gathered amongst the school in essential assessments, and we've had rigorous conversations with our teams to ensure that we are targeting our interventions for all our students where needed, and also ensuring that we have high expectations of all our students as they go on their educational journey. We also look outward, and when we say looking outward, we're looking for what works best in our department. When we're putting plans in place for our future, we want to know what's tried and tested. We want to make sure that we have those strategies built in our new plan. And when we look at evidence-based strategies, as a team, we have been looking at visible learning for teachers. by John Hattie. Now, Hattie went and did a study on hundreds of schools and showed that when we make learning visible to our students, they achieve greater results. But also when there is a collective teacher efficacy about the effect on learning, our students have greater results. And as an executive team, we have been looking at clarity. What matters most in learning, teaching, and leading? We are putting a spotlight on the studies, the evidence-based studies that have occurred. We're looking at what works best in our schools, and we want to ensure that the strategies that are in place are tried and tested. But most importantly, when we look at this future plan of what we need to succeed, we want to make sure that we're student focused. We want to make sure that your student, your child, is at the centre of our decision making. And we know that this child, when they come to our care at Wilkins Public School, is surrounded by a caring family and carers, already the first educators of this child. You're the decision makers. Your input into what happens to our school is important. Our system wraps around families, and we want to make sure that we're making the best decisions in our plans going forward. We want to make sure that our numeracy and literacy rates are increasing. We want to ensure that we are focusing on what works best for us and for your students. But what works best is ensuring that we have goals and we are not distracted by other things in our schools that are taking us away from our planning. In the next video, in the coming weeks, you will hear of a number of things that we will be modifying, increasing, and some things will be decreasing in our schools. There will be changes, and these are changes that are needed if we are going to make sure every student, every teacher, every leader, and every school improves every year. Thank you for coming on this journey with us. I welcome your feedback in the forms link at the top of this slide. Thank you.